Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another session with Ascent Realty, and I'm your humble host, Benson Okeziowoso, Esquire. So, our topic for today, it's more like a continuation from last week. So, the topic for today is property ownership, covenants that protect parties in a joint venture agreement. So, just a reminder, a joint venture agreement is actually a very common form of contract signed between parties who intend to engage in some sort of business transaction. Now, in this case, the transaction in question is property transaction, and the essence of this session is to pick out the requisite covenants that must be present in any JVA, that's the abbreviation, joint venture agreement, to ensure that all parties are covered and all interests are covered as well. Now, for the covenants that I'm going to point out here, please take note that these are not the only covenants to exist in a joint venture agreement. This is a joint venture agreement is one that allows you to be as accommodating as possible. The essence of any agreement, no matter the template you see, no matter what you see, is to cover the intention of all parties. So if peradventure I do not mention any covenant here for this session, it doesn't mean that if there's any other feature, if there's any other addition that you need to make in your covenant, it doesn't mean that you should not include them. This is just like a foundation, or at least things that you need to know for subsequent use. So one of such covenants is what is known as a recital. The recital clause or recital covenant, anyone you call it. But I'm going to be making use of the words clause as we go on, even though the term should be covenant. So whether you call it a clause, whether you call it a covenant, they all mean the same thing. And a covenant, in as much as a JVA is an agreement, the covenants in the JVA are now those specific points where both parties align. For instance, me and you want to engage in buying and selling. That's the contract. It's basically a buying and selling thing. However, the specific covenants could be that I would supply the vehicle, I will fuel the vehicle, while your own role will be to supply the goods and any other specific. So do you get it? The agreement itself, the contract, the JVA is the whole part of the agreement, while the covenants are the bits that both parties agree to. So one of them is called a recital. Now, in a legal document, a recital refers to a statement or a provision at the beginning of the document that sets out the background for the agreement or the contract that follows. From the definition alone, you already know that the recital comes at the initial part of the drafting of the contract. Now, this is usually just after the parties have been named. For example, this joint venture agreement is made this dash day of dash between so and so and so and so. So just after that, what follows next is this recital. The essence of the recital is to give a sort of background knowledge on why persons would like to enter into such an agreement. And this JVA, in terms of property transactions, usually refer to an agreement between the owner of the property and a developer. Now, in some cases, most owners are the developers of the property. But in a situation where the development to be done on the property is so large, or it's so large, or has to do with so much funds that the owner alone may not be able to take up to fully develop the property, depending on the large scale, he or she can involve himself with a real estate agency, usually known as developers, who join forces with the owners of this land to build on them. The developing here simply means building on them. Depending on what it may be, it could be for residential purposes, it could be for commercial purposes, it could be for anything, agricultural purposes, meaning call it anything you want. But the idea is that the owner, being one party, liaises with the developer, being the other party, usually a real estate agency, to develop the property, to build on it, to raise all manner of structures as may be agreed by both parties. So after the recital, what follows next? Okay, now these covenants and clauses I'm going to give now would not be given necessarily in like an order, but the main thing is that they should be present in each of them. So another clause or covenant that should be included in joint venture agreement is what is known as a definition clause, which points out specific terms. It could be anything, just anything you would like the description to be expressly known by both parties or any party that would be, going through your agreement. That is the section of the JVA that you should mention, that you should point out such agreement. For example, now you could define the word agreement. When you want to write the draft of the JVA, using the word JVA all the time can seem clumsy can seem very clumsy. So you could just define, or you can just make a note under the definition clause that where you see the word agreement, what is being referred to is the joint venture agreement, in full. So these are the type of things that take place there. Now, the essence is for both parties, again, to be in tandem or to be in consensus addendum with one another. Now, the next covenant here is the commencement covenant. This is with the name, that is what it is. This stipulates the time that the contract should be entered into. The next point, the next covenant / clause is what is known as the purpose or operation of the joint covenant clause or covenant. Again, with the name, purpose clause. That is where you point out why you want to enter into the agreement. Now, from the recital could simply be something like the owner of so property agrees to the development of the said land by the other party known as this. However, the purpose specifically can be drafted in this way, something like the owner of this property agrees that the land situated at so place would be erected a 3-story building. The essence of that purpose clause is for you to be very specific on exactly what the joint venture agreement is all about. And usually what follows it is what is known as the duties of the party or the duties / responsibilities clause. Now, having stated the purpose of the agreement, what follows next are the responsibilities. And this is a major part of every JVA because obviously, like I stated earlier, the essence of a JVA is for both parties to liaise. So the functions and the responsibilities of all parties involved must be made known to both parties. So it's not just enough that, okay, this is what we want to do. That additional step to ensuring that both parties are abreast with the functions of either of themselves, that also is very important. So the next covenant that follows is what is known as custody of titles deeds. Obviously, since we are dealing with property here, there is that need to be specific on who keeps the title documents for the property. Ordinarily, the owner keeps it, of course, but in some cases, it could be agreed that the title deeds may be kept in the custody of the developer, but usually it is the owner who keeps such title documents. It could be the certificate of occupancy, it could be the registered deed of assignment, registered deed of conveyance, registered deed of transfer, an official gazette, governor's consent, or registered deed of assent, as the case may be. So yes, and next involves, or rather the next clause or covenant is known as accounts and expenses covenants. Now this, with the name, this covenant, the essence is for everyone to know his or her financial contributions to the agreement, to the developing of the property. Now, there is no hard and fast rule that says that it is the developer that should contribute more or that it is the owner that should contribute more. Everything depends on the agreement of both parties. Now, the next covenant is what is known as the insurance clause or covenant. We all know what an insurance is, and we all know that given the occurrence of natural disasters, literally anything can happen be it fire, be it flood, be it any act of God. So there is the need to have a covenant that covers, or rather that ensures, the property being developed. So in any situation where we all know that JVA, sorry to call that, but we all know that JVA is a form of investment. So there is always every need to insure every form of investment. So this insurance clause shows specifies the risk to be protected, the party to pay the premium, the party to whom the premium will be paid to when the risk occurs.